If you've been following me for a while, you probably already know that I only fly the Monster cameras almost exclusively. The only cameras that I fly that are not the Monster camera are the cameras that I've gotten for free from whoever, or Foxeer has sent me for testing purposes. They have just sent me a new care package, and the care package had the Aero Mini in it, which actually looks really nice. I haven't actually looked at it yet, but it should be the exact same sensor, should perform identical. And it has a new lens. The lens on the Aero Mini is a 2.1 lens that they specifically made for this Mini based on my recommendation, because the 1.8 lens from Pyroflip is actually the most desired lens, or the most preferred lens on the Sony 600 IV3 sensor, because it has very low distortion and it has the same or wider field of view than a 2.1 or 2.5. These numbers don't really mean much. The lenses are not really high profile productions, they are just made, and I actually have seen some 1.8 lenses that are wider than a 1.3 lens, so it doesn't really mean anything. The Pyroflip 1.8 is a fantastic lens, and the 2.1 lens that Foxeer has made for this camera and is now standard on the Aero Mini is also a fantastic lens. It is actually just a hair better than the 1.8 from Pyroflip, because the very edge of the screen has slightly less distortion than the 1.8. That's great. The Aero is wonderful. I actually like this camera a lot. I think the hole placement on the mounting hole placement on this camera is really nice. It's better that it's up front here, and so it kind of sits further back into the frame, and so you just slide it up a little bit and it's going to give you good tilt. I do wish that they would start moving this connector maybe somewhere lower, or maybe back to the bottom like it used to be, because it now runs into our electronic boards when we tip it back. Anyways, that's another story. The thing I actually wanted to show you is this lens. This is the lens for the Monster. They actually had this already made, and I didn't even realize that they had it, but they told me, hey, we have this lens, it'll actually work for the Monster, would you like to try it? And they sent me one. This is a 1.8 lens, and it fits right on the Monster camera. I think it's actually designed for a wider sensor size than the Monster, because look how huge it is, and unfortunately that's something that they might have to change, or maybe they can cut it back or change the processing somehow. But it's an expensive lens for them to produce, they tell me, and it's unfortunately huge. But the view that you get from this lens is equivalent to the 2.1 or 1.8 on the Aero or any Sony 600 or IV3 camera, but on the Monster camera, which is a much higher resolution camera, and now the V2 camera has the HDR and it looks amazing, and so I'm getting the same vertical field of view and a much wider sideways field of view. I can't even explain how amazing this thing is to fly. Just to show you, these are all the prototype lenses that Foxeer made me to find a lens. They actually made half of these lenses custom for me in order to make a lens that fit the Monster, that gave this field of view that I've been looking for a long time. First, I'm flying the Aero camera with the new 2.1 lens on it. As I said, this lens is just slightly less distortion than the Pyroflip 1.8 lens. They're both just as good as each other, really. If you are buying a new lens, I would recommend getting this one instead of the Pyroflip 1.8. Just because it's got just a hair less distortion at the edge. I'm actually flying with a pair of 16:9 wide Fat Shark Dominator 3s, so I'm used to flying with a 16:9 wide camera, so it's taking me a little bit of time to get used to it, but once I get used to it, it's pretty much the same. The resolution of this camera, of the Aero cameras, are just so drastically low compared to the Monster camera that it's really hard for me to pick out where I'm going and try to really aim for where I want to go. If you've used the Monster camera before, you probably have noticed that it's really hard to go back to using a Sony 600 line CCD, just because the resolution jump is so huge. But if you've compared the two, you'll also realize that the CCD camera has a much brighter image, and in general all of the picture is kind of more lit up. It's just a more well lit image. I can't really explain it any other way. It's a minor effect, and you don't really see it after you get used to the Monster camera, but it's a little bit of an annoyance that you don't get that nice bright image from the Monster. The next lens I'm flying here is the 2.5 lens that's stock on the Monster, and I've been flying with this lens for well over a year now. And I'm doing fine with it. I can fly pretty close to objects. I'm flying nice acro, nice everything. Racing is fine. I really wish it did have a wider vertical field of view up and down, so I could go fast as well as slow. But as you saw, Foxeer had tried to make many lenses and have sent me tons of lenses looking for a better lens for the Monster, and I just thought it just doesn't exist. I couldn't find one that worked better than this one. So, you know, when I do Matty stunts kind of acro, I got to push my camera tilt all the way up to 65 degrees to be able to see behind me and see where I'm going. It's not so bad. It's whatever. Now you see me flying the 1.8 lens, which is super duper wide. I actually have almost exactly the same vertical field of view as the 2.1 lens on the Aero or the 1.8 lens from Pyroflip on a Sony 600 TV line sensor, but I have far more sideways horizontal field of view because it's a wider sensor, because I have more sideways field of view. And what that means to me is that when I'm going around corners, I'm usually on my side, so I can like tip into the corner more drastically and see where I'm going. I just feel more comfortable flying with this lens because I can see what's coming up, and I can see around objects because it's just so wide. One thing to note is that things do look like they're farther away. Even though it's a low distortion lens, it's a very short focal length, so things look like they're far away no matter what. To me, that just makes me feel like I'm flying slower than I really am, which I think is actually a pretty good thing. For racing, definitely I'm going to use this wide angle because we're flying at such crazy tilts and we want to come around gates so quickly that I really need the wide angle. Now you see a comparison of the two monster camera lenses side by side. One is a 2.5, one is a 1.8. I'm going to tell you that my monster camera settings, the 2.5 lens actually doesn't have my correct settings on. The 1.8 lens, the wider angle, has my correct settings, which is just HDR on medium and backlight on medium, and that's all I do. Everything else is stock. This is the monster camera V2. The V1 camera does not have the HDR setting, and that's what's new about the V2 camera. Here were the three quads I was flying. This is the Cow Quad, which is my new style frame, which I'm actually liking very much with the new lens on it. Super wide angle, super nice view. This one is a previous quad with the regular monster cam on it and the regular 2.5 camera. And this one is the Aero camera with the new 2.1 lens on it. And that's all. Don't forget to floss.